It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the headlines. The world watches as the biggest political event North Korea has held in decades begins. Much to the relief of Seoul, no nuke tests were conducted prior to the Workers' Party Congress, and there are no signs of carrying one out during the regime's almost festive event. In South Korea, the temporary holiday squeezed in to provide a 4-day weekend is guaranteed to spur domestic spending, but it may hurt industries dependent on operation days. With a wave of reforms set to shake things up in Korea's shipping industry, some drastic measures are introduced to help local shippers get back on their feet and gain a competitive edge. North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Congress launched under the watchful eye of the regime's leader Kim Jong-un. Not much information has been released yet, but the message delivered by the young leader will likely signal the path North Korea will take in the coming years. Connie Kim has the latest on the highest level meeting convened for the first time in 36 years.
Red party banners scattered along the streets of Pyongyang show North Korea's festive mood as the regime celebrates its ruling Workers' Party Congress, the North's highest political event in 36 years. More than 100 journalists from international media outlets have been permitted press coverage in the North Korean capital, but with the world's most secretive nation restricting coverage inside the convention center, the main event remains under a veil. What is known for now, however, is that some 3,000 party members have gathered at the venue to discuss the party's future policies. Outside the convention center, street interviews were allowed, offering a glimpse of North Koreans' undivided loyalty for its young leader.
We are very happy and proud that this honorable revolutionary tradition established by our great leaders is adding luster to our country, and that our respected comrade Kim Jong-un is holding up our country as the #1 in the world.
The 7th Workers' Party Congress is expected to run for 3 to 4 days, with Kim likely to formalize his leadership and solidify his Pyeongjin policy of simultaneous nuclear and economic development. The party is also forecast to extol the accomplishments of the Kim dynasty. The regime's founder Kim Il-sung, his son Kim Jong-il, and his grandson, the current leader Kim Jong-un. The highlight of the event is expected to be on the last day, when new younger aides to Kim Jong-un will be elected and Kim will be given the party's highest post. This rarest of rare events is being closely watched by the international community as Kim consolidates his hold on power and charts a vision for the future of the communist state. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And with North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Congress kicking off, the possibility of Pyongyang conducting a 5th nuclear test appears to have receded. Experts say the test will have to wait until after the event at the earliest. Kwon So-wha looks into the possible reasons for the regime's decision.
North Korea has refrained from conducting another nuclear test so far after its 4th one in January. That pushes the chance of a 5th test to after the ruling Workers' Party Congress that kicked off Friday. South Korea and U.S. predictions, activities at the North's nuclear test site, as well as a string of failed ballistic missile launches have been hinting that another nuclear test may happen prior to the Congress. This in order to boost its nuclear capability to its people before the big event. However, some experts say the timing wasn't appropriate in the regime's eyes, as it's feeling the increased international pressure. That includes its longtime ally China and Russia, which have shown more active cooperation in punishing the North for its recent provocations.
North Korea seems to have assessed that the aftermath would be too big before the Congress, as sanctions would accelerate. I think the North wants to boost its nuclear capability as much as possible before the next administration in the U.S.
Although some say a 5th test is a while away, the South Korean government is not taking any chances, with the military maintaining a state of readiness. That's partly because Seoul and the rest of the world have seen that Kim Jong-un's moves are more unpredictable than those of his predecessors. Kwon So-wha, Arirang News.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says no significant matters were brought up during his brief encounter last month with North Korea's foreign minister. Pan reportedly told Lee Soo-yong that he appreciated his attendance at the signing of a UN climate agreement and that he hoped to see him at more international meetings in the future. When asked about the international response to the North's continued provocations, the UN chief said there seems to be no better option than sanctions for now. But he added the world is not imposing sanctions just for the sake of sanctions, but rather to induce a change in North Korea and turn it into a responsible member of the global community. Pan is currently in Washington attending an international climate conference. It's day 2 of Korea's Golden Holiday weekend here. Expressways out of Seoul are packed with families hitting the road to escape the hustle and bustle of urban life. Oh Soo-young has the updates on the bumper-to-bumper traffic.
It might be a damp and dreary day, but many Koreans are out and about and on the road to make most of their 4-day weekend. In a bid to drive up domestic consumption, the government designated Friday as an extra public holiday as it was sandwiched between Children's Day and the weekend. To encourage people to travel, toll fees on the expressways have been waived and entrance fees to museums, palaces and other tourist hotspots have been slashed to zero. Korea's police agency estimates more than 5 million vehicles will be moving around the nation on Friday. Traffic congestion peaked at around noon on expressways out of Seoul and through major cities in Gyeonggi-do province, which surrounds the capital. The Gyeongbu Expressway leading to the southern port city of Busan is still heavily congested, as is the Seohean Expressway going towards Mokpo in the southwest. The roads are expected to stay jammed, but should start to clear up after 9 p.m. tonight. Drivers heading toward the capital will see peak congestion from 6 to 7 p.m. this evening. To keep the roads running safe and sound, Korea's police agency says it is stepping up efforts to monitor traffic on major highways and around tourist destinations. They're cracking down on drunk driving by setting up more random checkpoints in busy areas and using helicopters to catch drivers violating traffic laws, like driving in bus lanes. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The temporary holiday designed to ensure a 4-day weekend is welcome news for many Koreans. The government put the temporary holiday on the schedule to encourage people to get out and spend. Some people are taking advantage of the extra time off, but not everyone is reaping the benefits. Shin Se-min tells us more.
Koreans got an extra day off this month when the government designated May 6th a temporary holiday. There have been 3 other temporary holidays, but this is the first one designed to spur domestic consumption and boost a slowing economy. And it was planned to coincide with the month when domestic spending is usually at its height. Korea's Hyundai Research Institute projects the holiday will result in $1.1 billion in additional economic value. The institute predicts roughly $1.7 billion will be spent during the holiday based on the assumption that half of the entire population, or 25 million people, takes a day off. That's excluding the added value generated due to Koreans traveling abroad. But not everyone gets the day off. Only 37% of the country's 350 small and medium-sized businesses give employees a long weekend. And not everyone is happy about the holiday, which some say could be counterproductive.
The decision to have a temporary holiday was sudden, giving the public only a week to plan for the 4-day weekend, a factor that could work against the desired economic effect the government was seeking.
In addition, the long holiday means fewer workdays, translating to lower production and a drop in exports, which could hurt manufacturers and exporters depending on output to fuel their business. Korea's trade ministry said April's outbound shipments amounted to $41 billion, down 11.2% from the year before. An extra day and a half of vacation that month compared to the same month last year is a factor attributed to the drop. Industry analysts say the loss of one workday leads an export decline of between $2 and $3 billion. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The state-run Korea Development Institute is expected to cut its growth outlook for the nation in line with projections by major financial institutions for Korea to grow in the 2% range this year. Park Se-young brings us the numbers and more.
It seems almost certain that Korea's growth this year will be in the 2% range amid worsening market conditions at home and abroad. According to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, citing unnamed sources, the state-run Korea Development Institute could lower its growth outlook to that level sometime in the middle of the month. The think tank usually announces its growth predictions twice a year in May and December. In its December outlook, KDI cut its forecast from 3.1% to the current 3% based on projections for the global economy to grow 3.6% this year. Since then, however, global economic conditions have worsened. The IMF lowered its global growth forecast from 3.6% in December to 3.2% in April. It also slashed its growth outlook for Korea, which relies heavily on exports, to 2.7% from 2.9%. Other institutes in Korea have already lowered their projections, with most expecting growth in the 2% range. The government's economic outlook for this year stands at 3.1%, but many say it too is likely to cut its projection when it releases its economy management plan next month. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And now let us zoom in on the restructuring progress of Korea's troubled shipping industry. The country's #1 shipper by capacity, Hanjin Shipping, was given the green light for debt reform by the Korea Development Bank earlier this week. The shipping giant is to receive financial assistance from its creditors and undergo a rehab program. But it's got a tough road ahead. As a precondition, all business partners have to be committed to the restructuring plan, including private moneylenders and owners of ships chartered by the company. The country's #2 shipper, Hyundai Merchant Marine, also going through creditor-led reform, is being pushed by creditors and the government to complete its negotiations with the owners of chartered ships on lease cuts this month. South Korea, Japan, Indonesia, and Taiwan, 4 Asian countries expected to lower their benchmark interest rates by the end of the year, according to Oxford Economics. The Bank of Korea is expected to lower the rate by 25 basis points from the current record low of 1.5% by year's end. It forecasts Taiwan will cut 12.5 basis points, Indonesia 25, and Japan up to 40 basis points. The British-based analysts add other Asian economies will not lower interest rates as they are wary of liabilities and instability in the financial markets. As for China, after cutting 125 basis points since 2015, it forecasts Beijing will reveal other monetary easing measures instead of rate cuts. The United States will be firmly committed to its alliance with South Korea no matter what happens during the presidential election. That's what Republican Senator Thad Cochran said in an email interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency published Friday. The senator, who is also the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, directly rejected Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump's recent assertion that Seoul should pay 100% of the cost for the U.S. troop presence and that Korea and Japan could be allowed to develop their own nuclear weapons. Cochran adds the U.S. will continue providing military support to further strengthen South Korea's self-defense capability and expressed appreciation for Seoul's investments in and support for its own defense. U.S. authorities are cracking down on the sale of all nicotine products to minors. Until now, the FDA has been able to regulate only cigarettes and chewing tobacco, but the new law will give it full authority. For details, let's turn to our Park Jong-hong.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration will review and crack down on the entire spectrum of nicotine products. Based on a newly passed federal regulation, the FDA will ban the sale of e-cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, and hookah tobacco to anyone under the age of 18. This is on top of the existing ban on cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, and roll-your-own tobacco products.
As cigarette smoking among those under 18 has fallen, the use of other nicotine products, and especially e-cigarettes, has taken a drastic leap. Between 2011 and 2015, the percentage of high school students who smoked e-cigarettes has skyrocketed over 900%.
The FDA added that tobacco use is a significant public health threat, with smoking being the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the U.S., responsible for 480,000 deaths per year. Under the regulation, retailers will no longer be allowed to sell any kind of nicotine and tobacco products to people under the age of 18, and all sales to those 26 and under will require a photo ID. Following a series of public hearings, the regulation is set to be implemented from August 8th. Meanwhile, California also took a major step to curb smoking among the next generation. Under a new state law, persons under the age of 21 are prohibited from purchasing tobacco, with the exception of active military personnel. Park Jung-hong, Arirang News.
These are the stories we're following at this hour. We'll have more updates at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. For now, thank you for watching.